Similar to unpaired sinuses, we have paired sinuses as well. What are paired sinuses? Let us see. I am keeping the dural fold down so that we can see the cranial cavity. Now, entire cranial cavity is divided into three fossae. This is the anterior cranial fossa, this is the middle cranial fossa, this is the posterior cranial fossa. So, mostly the sinuses start from the middle cranial fossa. What are the middle cranial fossa sinuses? Let's see. Along the lesser wing of the sphenoid, we have a sinus that is called as spinoparietal sinus. Parietal refers to, you can see the discoloration here. This is the venous blood which is present in the sinus. So here we have parietal bone. That's why this sinus is called as spinoparietal sinus, along the lesser wing of the sphenoid and parietal bone. Now inside the middle cranial fossa, we have this veins. If you see clearly, here you can see a small ramifying veins. Even if you remove the dura mater, you can see the impressions on the bones. This is called as middle meningeal sinus. So middle meningeal veins or sinuses. Then we have one on either side of the body of the sphenoid. This is called as cavernous sinus, which is the major sinus which we study. Then along the petrous part of the temporal bone and the squamous part of the temporal bone, we have another sinus which covers the middle cranial fossa from back side. That is called as petrosquamosal sinus. Squamous part of the temporal bone, petrous part of the temporal bone. So the sinus is called as petrosquamosal sinus. So that completes 4 sinuses in the middle cranial fossa. Let's revise once again. This is the spinoparietal, middle meningeal, cavernous sinus, petrosquamosal sinus. Now let's see posterior cranial fossa sinuses. We have along the transverse sulcus on both sides. Here you can see on both sides at this region we have transverse sinus. Transverse sinus continues. This is actually a continuation from the straight sinus only. So here we have straight sinus which is unpaired, and from here transverse sinus goes on both sides. So here along this margin till the petrous part of temporal bone we have transverse sinus. Now transverse sinus continues downwards. Here you can see that it is continuing downwards into the jugular fossa. This continuation is the sigmoid sinus. So we have transverse sinus, sigmoid sinus, where internal jugular vein is formed from the commences from the ending of the sigmoid sinus, which enters into the jugular fossa. Then along the petrous part of temporal bone, we have superior petrosal sinus and inferior petrosal sinus. They will be present on upper border and lower border of petrous part of temporal bone along the posterior cranial fossa. So we have superior petrosal and inferior petrosal sinus. So inferior petrosal sinus is the first tributary to the internal jugular vein. So it passes along the jugular foramen and enters into the internal jugular vein. So we have 2 sinuses here. So there are 4 sinuses total in the posterior cranial fossa, that is superior petrosal, inferior petrosal, transverse and sigmoid sinus. So these are the total paired sinuses of dura mater.